Dillup, A Frog's Adventures, Chapter 2, Frog Bully. Diddle and Bonzo found a new place to call home. There was an area that was considered neither frog nor bass territory, and they thought they could live there peacefully. Unfortunately, there were still some bass and frogs that were angry at the idea of a bass and a frog being friends. Sometimes Bonzo would be chased away from where he was eating bugs by other bass, and sometimes Diddle would be chased away from his food by other frogs. This means that a few of the bass and the frogs were willing to leave the safety of their own territory just to make Diddle and Bonzo's lives harder. But eventually, as they were both entering the neutral waters to pick on Bonzo and Diddle, sometimes the cruel bass and frogs would run into each other. These were the angriest and the most hateful of their species, so naturally this led to bad situations. At first, when Diddle and Bonzo saw this, they were relieved because at least they were too busy chasing each other, which meant they didn't bother Diddle and Bonzo. One day, when Bonzo was out looking for food, he saw a frog that was barely moving. A few bass had caught it and smacked it several times until it was too sore to continue swimming. Bonzo knew this was one of the frogs that had been making his and Diddle's lives miserable. He was tempted to leave it to its own fate, but Bonzo had too much heart. He knew it would probably drown if it did not get out of the water. Bonzo remembered how he once saved Diddle, and he decided to do the same thing for this frog. It would be easier because it would be a much shorter distance and he didn't have to hurry. Bonzo was in no mood to try to talk to or reason with this ridiculous frog, so he just swam up underneath it and carried it on his back to the nearest lily pad without saying a word. When Bonzo got home, he told Diddle what had happened. Diddle, that's what makes you such a great friend, Bonzo. You are not the type to leave a desperate being in need. Tomorrow we should go check on it to see how it is doing. Bonzo, yes, tomorrow sounds fine. Early the next morning, Bonzo and Diddle went to where Bonzo had left the frog, but it was not there. They checked the area and found the frog a few lily pads away. When they approached, the frog looked terrified. Both the bass and the frog he had been bullying were approaching at the same time, and the frog was still too sore to try to get away. Bonzo, you can relax. We did not come here to hurt you. Frog, how can I believe you? We are enemies. Diddle, what's the last thing you remember? Frog, I remember the other bass catching me by myself and beating me up. I remember thinking I could no longer swim and I would probably drown. Bonzo, yep, that's how you looked when I found you. Frog, what do you mean you found me? Diddle, how do you think you got to the lily pad instead of drowning? Bonzo carried you like he once did for me. The frog looked stunned. The bass he hates had saved his life, and the frog he had bullied was not attacking him. Bonzo, are you still not yet strong enough to swim or hop back home? Frog, no, not yet. I would have already gone home if I could. Diddle, do you think you could get him close enough without being in danger, Bonzo? Bonzo, if I move him fast and deep like I did with you, I should be able to manage it. Once again, the frog looked stunned. Not only had they saved him, and now they are talking about taking him home. What's more, on the back of the very bass he hates so much. None of the bad things he had thought about Diddle and Bonzo were true after all. They were actually very kind and understanding. In only a few moments, he had stopped hating them both and had now instead felt grateful to them both. Bonzo swam up to him. As the frog got on his back, Bonzo told him to take a deep breath, hold on tight, and not cover his gills. Diddle watched with a smile as he saw Bonzo dive deep and take off as he had done with him. Later, when Bonzo returned, he and Diddle talked for a long time. They felt good about having helped someone in need. Now, they were hoping that it might lead to a change in how the frogs had been treating them.